Great. Welcome, everyone. This is a public meeting of Hanover College Division of Arts and Letters Advisory Review Panel, convened to review the FY22 Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project Support Grant Program applications from Region 12. I am Paige Sharp, and I am the Deputy Director of Programs for the Indiana Arts Commission, and I'm calling in from Indianapolis. Today is April 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and we are meeting online and streaming live for applicants and the public to observe. There's no contact between the panel and the audience about the disposition of applicants before, during, or after the panel meeting. This meeting will be recorded and made available upon request. Those on YouTube, please note that there is a list of the applications that will be reviewed today in the description. At this time, I will individually invite each of the panelists to introduce themselves, to state their name, occupation, and where they're from in the state, and then I'll introduce the staff. So let's start with the panel. And to introduce ourselves first, Kevin?
Hi, I'm Kevin Rose Schultz. I'm a retired art educator and an artist, and I'm calling in from Floyd's Knobs, Indiana.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Jack?
I'm Jack Francis. I'm a participant in the musical theater arts here in the Louisville, and I'm calling in from Louisville.
Great. Thank you, Jack. Madison?
Hi, I'm Madison Haskins. I'm the Development and Volunteer Coordinator for the Waldorf School of Louisville, and I am calling in from Louisville.
Great. Thank you, Madison. Claire?
Hi, I'm Claire Johnson. I work for the City of New Albany Department of Redevelopment as the Neighborhood Initiatives Coordinator, and I'm calling in from Clarksville, Indiana today.
Wonderful. Thanks, Claire. Bobby?
Hi, I'm Bobby Foster from Scott County, Indiana, where I'm calling in from, and I'm a grant administrator for youth drug and alcohol prevention.
Great. Thank you. Emily?
I'm Emily Seiler, and I'm calling in from Crawford County here in Leavenworth, and I'm an art and music educator and a freelance graphic designer.
Fantastic. Thank you, panelists. Elsa, would you please introduce yourself and your role here today?
Sure. My name is Elsa Conboy. I work at Hanover College, and Hanover College is the regional arts partner with the Indiana Arts Commission, and I serve as the grant coordinator for Region 12 of the state.
Fantastic. Thank you, Elsa. And Chapin?
I am the Contracts, Operations, and IT Assistant at the Indiana Arts Commission, and I'm joining from Morgan County.
Awesome. All right, that's our team. Well, let's go ahead and get started. And I want to go ahead and get the panel review process. We'll describe that a little bit before we fully get started. This is how it'll work. I will announce the application that we will review and ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based upon the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note that the applications do not need to be recapped since everyone has read it. Just provide your comments. So after the first panelist is finished, I will ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We're not looking for consensus in this panel, just a full evaluation from the different perspectives that panelists bring to the table. After the second reader is finished, I will open the discussion for final comments. And remember, in the interest of time, we're only looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. We do have a panelist that has a conflict of interest, and when that application that they have a conflict with is going to be reviewed, we will put them in the waiting room and then bring them back at the conclusion of that evaluation. And then finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we ask the panel to update their scores in the online system. It's very common for scores to change as a result of this broader discussion. And these scores do automatically save. And so panelists, if during the conversation you change the score, it will automatically save for you. Now, are there any questions before we get started? All right, then I will go ahead and introduce the first application and reader. And the first application on our list today is Hazewood Theater Group from Harrison County, and our first reader is Claire.
Okay, I thought this organization took great consideration in their selection process. They had a detailed explanation about the emphasis that they put on the community's reaction to their previous productions. And I felt that it was evident that the organization used past experience to inform this year's planning. The application stated that all of the participants are volunteers and they do not directly benefit financially through the program. However, the budget showed a $4,500 artist fee. So it would appear to directly benefit an artist. So I would appreciate more details about that artist fee. Additionally, the budget displayed a reasonable amount of cash expenses that offset that offset the cost of scripts and rights, sets, etc. And I would feel that likely does have a financial benefit to those that are participating in this production. For community engagement, it was evident that there was a high level of participation from community members and that it was valued by this organization. There are various volunteer opportunities for people to provide feedback and suggestions. And the ticket sales make up a large portion of the cash income for this organization. By the math that I was doing, it would show that each ticket would be $57, which is a high ticket fee. So I do question if these productions are available to those that may not be able to afford a high ticket price like that. The clarification on those prices to gauge the affordability would be helpful. So, okay, and then additionally, the accessibility of the performances would be welcomed. They would be encouraged to address ADA accessibility in their own facility or to explore bringing performances to those that are in isolated geographic locations, as well as establishing an affordable ticket model to accommodate low-income community members. The organization clearly valued the IDAA strategy, and I appreciated that the organization went through each one of those. I will say that the understanding between equality and equity may not be there for this organization, and a deeper understanding could enhance their ability to really take their initiatives a step forward. Equity is about providing resources based on the needs of people, and I didn't feel that was being met through this. Perhaps they did say that they placed that anyone that wished to participate in the organization, that they could find a place somewhere within there. They may not receive the role that they auditioned for. And I do commend the organization for that. I do wonder if there are opportunities for training for those that may want to fulfill those roles in the future. But I thought that overall, this organization valued their community feedback. However, I did not see a measurable way for them to do that. And I think that they could gauge this, the impact of their project by implementing surveys or watching social media activity. And then as far as the project management, the lead project manager was experienced and well qualified to implement this project. They did only include the information about the lead project manager, although throughout the application it was noted that there was project staff and personnel, including a director and a producer. So I do wonder if that should have been included in that description. In the budget, the cost for scripts, rights, sets, costumes, props, etc., were all bundled into one cash expense, and it was the largest cash expense for this organization. I think that an itemized list of that spending would help to better inform us of those needs, of their funding needs. Yeah, okay, I'm finished.
Great, thank you, Claire. That was very good. Bobby?
I'll echo much of what Claire said, but not belabor this by repeating it. So I'll jump in where I differ a little bit. I really felt that they did a fantastic job of providing pictures that showed the high quality of the program that they're providing to their community with design, set, costume, and the performers. So kudos to them on that. I do want to reemphasize what Claire said about surveying the general public to engage them in the performance selections. And then when discussing inclusion, be sure to discuss the audience. I felt there was a lot of information about the cast and crew, but from the audience side, I just didn't feel like I had enough information there. Project management is the same. It just, as a grant reviewer, it's helpful if you just repeat information, just so we're clear on everything.
Great, thanks, Bobby. Other comments from the panelists?
Well, I was impressed in their in-kind contributions and especially including it, but as has already been specifically mentioned before, a breakdown is helpful for those people who are not working within their organization to understand how they apportion the expenditure of their people as well as their monies.
Gotcha. Other comments? Oh, Madison?
Just, I really appreciate that the organization, again, is open to suggestions and feedback from the community on the plays they would like to see. But I would encourage the organization to include some non-board members in its play selection committee, just so you get some outside perspective that is more involved than just a survey.
Excellent. Any other comments? All right, go ahead and update your scores in the online system and queue up our next application, which is House of Jane, which is sponsored by the Cultural Continuum of Madison. Okay, we'll go ahead and start our review of House of Jane. I'm doing a quick pulse to make sure you guys are all ready. And our first reader is Kevin. Looks like you're ready to go, Kevin.
Yeah, I thought it's a really great project. I know I remember reading this one the last time around too, so they're continuing with it. I got a chance to look at their video recordings, which are online. They have a link to that on the application too, and they're pretty fabulous from what I've seen. So I think that the artists reap the benefit of earning income and also getting experience and exposure in the music business. I think that's definitely a pro for this project. Let's see here. And I like to see too where they're collaborating with musicians, sound and video techs to produce the musical performances. Their community involvement helps them to evaluate their project's impact. It doesn't seem like there's like a really clear and concise way to evaluate it's more an intuitive way as far as from what I read in the application. So I'm wondering if maybe they could have some type of a survey where they could ask for input from their patrons and maybe the musicians as well. Let's see, I also have, I can see that the commitment to providing a quality program to all of the community through the in-person performances and the music videos on the web. I wonder if there might be a way to bring music into underserved communities when COVID restrictions are better, where they might have a free musical performance, because the musical performances that they had, they were all where people would have to pay an admission fee to come see them. So I know it's not an ideal situation for recording, but I just thought that it would help the project to better meet the IDEA strategies. And then also I think it's wonderful that they're publishing the performances to YouTube, so anyone can watch for free, anyone who has access to the internet. But that there are still underserved communities, and that's what they offered some kind of free performances in the edition that they do that might open it up for more people to be able to experience it. And then in looking at the project management and the budget, it seemed that to me, everything appeared to be well planned and budgeted. That there was a problem with dates though, and it might be that it was last year's application and they didn't change like the project start date. They need to go back and take a look at that. The in-kind contributions show that they have a lot of community support for their program. And this is a testament to the leadership abilities and the success of the program, I think. And I think that was it for me.
Great, thank you. Our next reader is Emily.
All right, I'll echo without going into a long description as well, that the quality of the videos and having those as examples go a long way to help the cause. And I also agree with the collaboration, the exposure for the artists. I do agree with having the option for it to be more accessible by it being free sometime in the future. The timeline was the only thing like in the lacking category, as it listed the shows, but having the other parts of the planning be in the timeline. So, you know, the prepping, the planning, the evaluation afterward, having that be in there could serve useful for the application. And that's all I have.
Great, thanks you, Emily. Any other comments from the rest of the panel? Any new or opposing? Claire?
So in reviewing the videos, I did notice that all of the artists that were included are white, and I'm wondering if this organization could work to, or encourage them to work to really diversify their artists, their musicians. Additionally, I didn't see any marketing material attached to the application, and there is a $2,400 amount of the budget that is allocated to marketing. And I thought that if that much of their funding is going towards marketing, it should at least be, some things should have been included within the application.
Excellent. Other comments? Madison?
Related to Claire's comment about the diversity of musicians performing at House of Jane, I would be interested in possibly seeing a call for musicians. It's unclear to me how these budding musicians hear of the opportunity to play at House of Jane. I know it says that they're getting feedback on the performances that help drive what musicians and type of music would be the community would have an appetite for, but I don't see how local musicians hear of the opportunity initially to do a trial performance for consideration.
Great. Other comments? Excellent. We'll go ahead and update your scores in the online system and queue up our next application, which is Lanesville Community School Corporation. And I do see that we do have a conflict of interest with Lanesville, and Kevin needs to be in the waiting room, and it looks like
He's there now.
Already done. Chapin's on top of it, of course. Okay, well, let's go ahead and review Lanesville Community School Corporation, and our first reader is Bobby.
Okay. I thought this program was an excellent idea to balance the visual and the music arts for those younger students, while also engaging the entire student body with a unique experience. I thought it was a great use of that resource, Arts for Learning Indiana, so they could bring in artists from around the state to engage with their students. Where I got a little confused was on clarifying the participant reach in the application. The numbers seem to be inconsistent, whether they're counting each person once or more than once. Somehow we ended up with more students than were in the student body. So I'm not sure what happened there in the application. I like the variety of artists that they're bringing in, that again, they're looking at what's happening in the classroom. For example, their Shakespeare class, and they're bringing in the Indiana Repertory Theater. to really assist with getting students engaged and excited about the learning as well as the experiencing. I thought their budget was well thought out. Having multiple financial supporters is an excellent way to ensure program stability and sustainability. And those were it.
Great, thank you, Bobby. Madison?
I also agree that this is a phenomenal project in terms of supporting local Indiana artists as the facilitators of these workshops, but also the diversity of the workshops they are providing. It looks like there has been more attention in the descriptions for the art, like the tangible arts programs. I can see that, you know, it's specific that you're working on Japanese silk paintings and metal embossing, but it's unclear to me how the music workshops, exactly what those are focused on. And would love just to encourage to keep in line that thinking of more worldly workshops you can expose to, whether it's just diverse music types that aren't local to Indiana in this region. I would just encourage the applicant to consider that, finding musicians who have kind of a worldly music.
Great, thank you, Madison. Other comments from the panel? Claire?
I didn't see any mention in the application about serving an underserved community or initiatives related to IDAA. So I would think that if they're focusing on their student body, that they would be able to even just have a better idea of the demographics that they are serving. I mean, you can easily look and see if there are low income students that are located on or that are on a free or reduced lunch that could provide some insight into that. And I also noticed in the application that they state that they have a homogeneous white student body, and that they felt that the students would be able to see themselves in the artists that they are bringing in. And I would think that actually they're bringing in artists that look very different than their student body, and that really that's a benefit to those students there. And I feel that could be a conversation that could be had as part of this programming too, about different cultures and what exposure to that, what kind of benefit that can have for their students.
Great, other comments?
The application did mention that it was accessible to all the students. However, that maybe pinpointing a plan to be able to have the activities be more accessible to those children with learning disabilities, to be prepared for that. So if it is accessible to all the children, and there are children that come in that have learning disabilities, to maybe work with that student's teacher, and that would be tying in the IDAA is to plan for that, because when they come in, not everyone is going to respond or have the same emotional response to some of the music or the art because of that disability. So planning for that would be best served for the child.
Great, thank you, Emily. Other comments? Wonderful. We'll go ahead and update your scores in the online system and queue up the next application, which is Madison Main Street program.
In the meantime, Kevin has been readmitted.
Thanks, Chapin. Welcome back, Kevin. All right, we're ready to review the next application, which is Madison Main Street program, and our first reader is Jack.
Yes. This project has occurred in multiple years, so it is sort of like a well-polished machine in terms of doing what it needs. It appears to do an excellent job of showing artists how they can progress, because it is bringing artists that have previously been in the area back into the area and showing what success they have enjoyed. So that's especially good. The challenge, of course, is to ensure that they have broad scale access to multiple different disciplines in terms of artists. That sometimes squeezes you down whenever you choose only from those who have been before. And so you need to look at it from the aspect of saying, are we expressing all the opportunities for different classes of people relative to their economic position, as well as where they their particular practice or discipline, what they're doing. I think the other is being somebody with the ADA community, the need for making sure that you respond to the blind community, for example, as well as the pulling out to ensure that you meet a broad selection of the other individuals in the community as well. Other than that, the utilization of people, because of the fact they do have quite a bit of in-kind contribution, as well as ensuring that some of the artists that are needing to be able to be remunerated for that are part of the budget process. So all in all, the well-polished machine has some opportunities to brighten its shine.
Great, thank you, Jack. Claire?
Is this for the Madison, the Main Street program? Okay, I think that I have a very, okay, all right, sorry. I thought that maybe that was about the Madison Performing Arts program that Jack was describing, because I think that this was 1 year.
Oh, I pulled up the wrong one.
Okay.
So obviously my comments are quite different. Yes.
Okay.
Go
Okay.
for it, Claire. You
Thank you, Claire.
probably and I have the same perspective on that.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and do the and do
Go for it. It's useful to hear your voice, right?
Okay. All right. Well, so
trying to find it. Because obviously that's the wrong one.
Okay. So I did have some concerns with this program. It felt more promotional in nature than it felt like it was an artistic expression. So let me try to think about how I can say this. Okay. So it was unclear to me that the story that the banners were telling. So, and also how the video production was going to be an art form. As I said before, both components of this project felt promotional to me. And you know, they also talked about the loft tours that they were going to be giving, and how these banners would be displayed for these loft tours. Again, this felt like a promotion for the building where the loft tours are taking place. They talk about the historical artists that they have, which is Donna Weaver, who was the Mint artist. And I thought, whoa, that is a cool story. Mm-hmm. I want to know about that. And I really didn't see any evidence of that being told through this project. Additionally, they briefly mentioned some Black hairstylists and candy makers that were located along Main Street. Again, I'm thinking, okay, I want to know about this story, right? And I wasn't seeing how that was coming through these materials. I really would like maybe some clarification on if this is a project that qualifies for this type of funding.
Okay, Jack, were you able to find your comments?
I found it now. My machine has found it as well. I think I was concerned about the breadth of their, given that they were going to utilize this in some fashion that was actually going to do what they were intending to do and what our programs are expecting to do. I was concerned that they were entirely, as you pointed out, I think you used the word promotional, the case of where banners, et cetera, had an opportunity to tell a story, but instead it was too much of a, I just want to make a pretty graphic in terms of what's happening as contrasted to actually being an exemplary of the story itself. The second part of it was I was seeing a difficulty of actually accessibility for the broad community. I deal a lot in old people's facilities, being one myself. And so one of the things we do is spend an enormous amount of effort to try to ensure that we are making sure that things such as this would actually be accessible in the facilities as well, and that the understandability would be there. And so that you would actually be able to manage the aspect of bringing those individuals to the exposition or whatever is happening in terms of what the banners are trying to purport. So I think those were the things that were very stressful in my mind in terms of actually accomplishing what we intend for this money to be spent for.
Other comments from the rest of the panel? Kevin?
I kind of disagree with the banner design. I didn't see that being so promotional as being more like educational about history, about the history of the community, and to like educate people that come in to learn about the community, and maybe even educate people that live there about their community, about the buildings and the history of some of the buildings. But with the idea of the video production, it seemed like two separate projects, and they didn't seem to really be linked. And I thought it would be really interesting if the video project could be linked to the history project, and that, you know, so people who can't get out maybe to see the banners, that there could be some kind of a video that would be related to people that lived there in the buildings, and that, and you know, more of a maybe art history approach to it. And that's all I wanted to add to it.
Sure. Emily?
So I'll kind of echo that on Kevin's point. Just being a graphic designer, I do feel that the banners still it is promotional in a way, but at the same point, it is graphic design, it's print design. So it does have a visual artistic component to it. So I did feel that was, you know, a substantial point. But what I did want to mention was that maybe they talked a lot about business community and not as much about like community collaboration. So it's great that they have the business support, but do they have the nonprofit supports? Do they have the community at large support? So I think if they could find a way to highlight that and be specific, you know, are they having meetings and what those collaborations look like? As well, I thought with it being so history focused, that you know, to also bring in IDA is to, you know, maybe work with some of the history classes in the high schools and bring them in and serve, you know, because they're the next generation. So if we're going back and talking about history, how can we bring in the future, the next history, and tie that all together? And that's what would help with collaboration and being more inclusive to all ages. That's all I had.
Other comments?
Well, they do talk about the businesses that have stepped in to fill that arts gap, but they also mention that they're working with the library and the local history center. So the public has multiple avenues to access the arts, and I think they're addressing that through the video component of their project.
Claire?
I didn't see any evidence of how this, or information about how the video was going to be displayed. That was not clear to me. I thought that could have been maybe an opportunity for all of this to kind of tie together, and for there to be a community event, right, where this is projected in their historic downtown. But that was not detailed in the application.
Great. Other comments? Let's go ahead and update the score in the online system, and then we'll queue up the next application, which is Madison Performing Arts Foundation. I'm sure I've done that too, Jack. If there's anything that I've done pretty much it all. So.
It's the same words.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I didn't clarify in one panel. I think it was earlier today that there were two schools. One was East Crawford and one was West Crawford, but I didn't differentiate between which Crawfords it was, or which one, East or West. And so there was confusion there, no doubt, as there should have been. So
Big difference.
yeah. Yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to said Madison Performing Arts Foundation. And our first reader is Emily.
Okay. And is Jack the second reader? He did a good job.
Sorry about that. I've stolen your thunder.
I don't have a lot of thunder to work with. It's okay. Yeah, they're a very established project. It's been going on for several years. Let's see. Let me look and see what my focus was. My focus comments were on community engagement and IDA, number 4. And let's see, number 4. This portion offers a variety of ways to gauge success. They have a lot of examples of how they gauge their success. It was actually a really good list, like applause and standing ovations and donations and letters. So something that I would have liked to seen was more, I think if you have all of that and that's all at your disposal, then you could find a way to have like a method or a measuring tool to prove all of it. And I'm not doubting that hasn't existed, but just to have some kind of way to measure that. And I think that would enhance it, because they are a well-oiled machine. And there were a lot of positives and things that stood out. But that was the one thing that I thought that they could take that variety of things and those examples and collect them, measure them, and use them in a systematic way to help with grants and raise more money. I had to look at my notes, sorry. And I did have a comment on number 3, but then I went back and reread it, and I did see that they did do a good job of being really inclusive, like to disabilities and different age groups. And I thought that was a strong point. And I think that's all I have. I think that's all I have. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And our next reader is Kevin.
I didn't have a lot to add to it, except that I thought it was nice that they were offering afternoon performances for the elderly. That was something that they mentioned in there as one of their offerings. Because I know sometimes it's difficult for older people to get out and drive at night because you can't see as well. And so I thought that was a nice thing that they had added in there. Also that they had an impressive lineup of musicians that were included in it, that I thought it looked to be a really exciting project. And I think that's about all I had in there.
Great. Any other comments? Okay, Claire?
So they mentioned that they do provide rides to people that they stated that may have difficulty finding parking. And I thought that, but then in order to arrange the rides that someone would need to call a board member. So this doesn't feel like something that may be accessible to everyone in the community. And I'm even thinking beyond not being able or having difficulty finding parking. If they have the capability to offer transportation and they could provide transportation to those in the community that may not own their own private vehicle, I think that could really be a huge benefit to this organization, especially on the nights that the days that they have the free performances. But I think that that's something to think about, is that maybe everyone in the community doesn't have a board member's phone number, right? And that also maybe some people do not have their own private passenger vehicle, and that they could be afforded the same opportunity to attend as well.
Great, thank you, Claire. Other last comments? Okay, great. Go ahead and update your scores and then queue up the next application, which is North Harrison Band Boosters. Okay, we'll move on to North Harrison Band Boosters, and our first reader is Madison.
I thought overall this was a project that is worth supporting given COVID. Paying your art instructors working in education, I sympathize with the need to adequately and fairly pay our teachers for the work that they do. And knowing that it's been a really rough year for education and educators themselves, I'm in full support of funding this project. I did have a few areas just to touch on in terms of IDEA. The organization focused a lot of accessibility in terms of fun. It says that all students are able to participate, whether they can fully pay the dues, pay travel, or fundraise and require financial assistance, but it doesn't really touch on access for students who are disabled or have special needs that might be at the school and interested, because it then goes on to say the program is open to any student that will work hard as a member of the ensemble. I am curious if this organization would take time to consider one-on-one supplemental tutoring for these children with special needs and disabilities, so that they're also involved in the ensemble in some capacity if they're interested in doing so. Again, it's a worthwhile project to support because it's not just the band teacher teaching basic band skills, it's also the specialist in dance, flag work, percussion, helping them advance their exposure to all aspects of the marching band. I think it's worthwhile. That's what my takeaway was.
Great, thank you, Madison. And Jack?
The additional outward reach into a community was always hitting me, not only for accessibility relative to people who may either like visually impaired individuals that may need transportation or some method. I think the other side of it was trying to figure out, how does this work relative to the rest of the community coming together to participate or benefit from this? And so the challenge that I was seeing there was cases of where people are not able to easily transport themselves, which also was mentioned there. So that was the major thing that struck me.
Great. Other comments from the panel? Claire?
I thought that their description of their band booster meeting was totally cool. So they talked about how the community is so involved in that. I mean, that I don't know if I've ever heard of a band booster meeting that invites members of the community to come in and give their input. I really think that the organization should be commended for that. I think that's awesome. And then, and I really enjoyed the video of their winter performance. And I thought their social media was really strong. However, they didn't attach any marketing material to the application. I think that is likely due to their presence on social media. It looks like that's where they do all of their promotions. And I think about how perhaps this organization, that obviously does value their community, if they could do some outreach through printed materials, that might be something that they could consider in the future.
Great, thank you. Other comments? Can you hear me? Yeah, all right. Did Emily have a comment?
Yes, I did.
Go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is it me? I don't think it's you. I think it's me.
Oh, okay. I was just like, what if I hit right? 'Cause I couldn't see the little mute button thing, so I didn't
I'm
know. if
kind
I
of
muted
paranoid
myself.
about where I live. It's very, very rural. So
Oh, okay.
I'm glad I'm still here. I had just put a comment in. They talked about the judging that they're judged at the competitions, which is awesome, and they seem to be like a really engaged group, and the instructors and the youth. So it might be also beneficial to those students. For maybe the instructor to have some kind of evaluation at the end, constructive evaluation, and maybe if there's a way to measure that as well, and to kind of keep data on that from the beginning of the season to the end, year after year, to show the progress, and have the instructors do that aside from the competitions, because competitions are great. I was just trying to think of another avenue, and then that's something that benefits the child and their growth.
Great, thank you. Kevin?
I kind of agree with Emily there. I had a comment similar to that, and that with the students, maybe an exit survey. I know in teaching sometimes do an exit survey, and that can be helpful, you know, to learn what could better benefit the students. And then I know they said that they invited students to the town hall meetings, but I wondered how many students actually show up for those town hall meetings. I mean, maybe they do, but and I was in band when I was in school, and it's like that most of the students didn't really attend those things unless there was something really controversial going on. So I was wondering if maybe there would be a way where students might have more of an impact, or maybe they do, but maybe it just wasn't described in the grant, about the development and planning of the program. You know, if the students could have more input on that.
Excellent feedback. Other comments? All right, we'll go ahead and update your scores in the online system and queue up the Oak Heritage Conservancy. Let's go ahead and move on to Oak Heritage Conservancy, and our first reader is
I think it's me. Okay. Okay. So I thought that this is a really interesting project, and especially at a time where so many Hoosiers are exploring their own backyards for what seems like the first time, which is just so cool. And this highlights this. And I would have liked to have seen in the artistic qualities some more information about the professional photographer that they have on the judges panel. There wasn't very much information about this artist, and I think that could better inform the level of expertise that's on the panel. Additionally, as this is an amateur contest, that seemed that the benefit that the artists do receive is that they receive a copy of their photograph. I'm assuming after the exhibition is over, but I did notice through their social media that they use these photos from the artists frequently. So it does hold value to this organization. It does feel like that there could be some compensation for perhaps the winning artist, considering how much how often these photos are being used by the organization. Trying to think what else I had in here. I did appreciate the marketing material, and they do have an emphasis on being inclusive in the means, or in the way that they will take photographs that are taken by, you know, as you're on your phone, using the camera on your phone. But I do think about populations that there are populations that do not have a phone. And I wonder if this organization, they seem very capable, that they could have like meetups where they could invite amateur photographers to come, and they could provide a camera of some sort for them, and allow for them to submit that way. I was also thinking about people that do not have internet access, which, like Emily, in rural Indiana, it can be kind of iffy, right? So it appeared to me the only way to submit a photograph was through the online portal. So I wonder about other options that could make that more accessible for people that may not have internet access as well. And I also was thinking about the elderly community with this. There's a lot of emphasis on the youth through this application, which is great. But I think about my mom, who I have to show how to use her camera on her phone. And I wonder if this organization might be able to provide even a tutorial. I was impressed overall by this application. I think that they are capable of taking it a few steps further.
Great. Thank you, Claire. Emily?
I would agree I was impressed with the concept of it, getting people outside and, focusing on, the beautiful Indiana that we have here. And also linking the conservancy with photography is unique. It's a good blend, a nice blended project. But I also do agree with the inclusiveness with the technology. That was a little bit of a thing. And also they mentioned that they would have, locations where they would have exhibits, but I don't remember it being specific and if those would be accessible to everyone and how are they going to let everyone know? So it's great to have one, but then how do we have everyone come and are they going to charge for that? Is that going to be free to everyone? And then the marketing material seemed geared in general, but then they said their focus was also on the youth. So I'm wondering if on their marketing, because I think that they could do this, they could have different styles. They could have a style that's general, they could have a style that's for the youth and kind of gear that as they need to. I think that they have the tools to take things a few steps further as well.
Great, thank you. Other comments?
Oh, sorry.
Madison?
It's just to piggyback kind of off Claire's comment regarding accessibility to technology. I would encourage the organization to consider the feasibility of almost a lending library for cameras. So rather than a meetup where you're borrowing other cameras that might be in use for this project, I would suggest that the Conservancy try to partner with the Indiana State Parks to have almost a checkout system of maybe there's 1 or 2 cameras at each state park. It does require a lot of faith and trust in the park goers and the people checking out the library. So you could perhaps have them leave their photo ID as a swap. But to give people a physical camera that's not relying on their phone or the personal camera that they have.
Great, Claire?
I just wanted to add one thing. They noted that they had an interactive map that people could use to find locations to take photographs. And I would encourage the organization to include on that map locations that are ADA accessible.
Yes. Jack?
Well, being one who deals with all the promotional materials for theater, one of the things that struck me was beginning photographers greatly excel or change in their feedback process. So what's missing in my estimate relative to this exposure and have all of these participants is the opportunity to have a session where they get detailed critique and feedback of their photograph. Because one of the very earliest thing that you get people looking at is composition, so that they causing a photograph to actually draw the eye in. And so that kind of feedback is very, useful to beginning photographers. The rest of it in terms of exposure and stuff like that, that's specialty type stuff that you move on. But the very beginning of it is to help people see with the eye of the observer.
Great, thank you, Jack. Kevin?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of piggyback on something Claire had mentioned about some monetary award. I had looked at it too, because I taught photography for many years at New Albany High School, and almost every competition we did, there's not always a monetary award, but like a ribbon or a certificate that would go along with it as well. But I thought it would be nice to have the amateur photographers and the grand prize photographer win some monetary amount, because it communicates to the artist and the community that art is valuable, not just aesthetically, but monetarily. You know, so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build up artists. So if we're trying to build up artists, shouldn't there be some kind of a monetary award for that? And there was one other thing. They said that they were visiting after-school programs and youth organizations. It was as a great way to promote the youth entries. And I thought, well, why not extend the invitation to the schools as well in the form of a letter to a principal? Because when I taught photography, we would quite often get a letter to a principal, and then they would distribute it out to the teachers that taught art or would be relevant to what the competition is. And then that way, then the educators and the schools could also help to promote that and also instruct and help the students to be able to enter. You know, there's access to computers there at school that might help open that up and make more students able to participate.
Great.
I thought it was wonderful that it was free, that you didn't have to pay an entry fee, because in most competitions that artists enter, you have to pay an entry fee. So I thought it was pretty wonderful that you didn't have to pay an entry fee.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Other comments? All right, go ahead and update your scores and queue up the next application, which is Scottsburg Band Parent Association. Okay, we'll go ahead and move forward with the next application, which is Scottsburg Band Parent Association, and our first reader is Kevin.
Okay, gosh, these guys are so experienced in writing this application. They've been doing it for, well, it says 44 years. This project has occurred. It's amazing. And they provide a lot of information and what they've got in their application. The artistic quality for the students is going to be very high because they have experts in their fields creating and planning the content. And let me see, what else do I have here? I noticed in being able to evaluate it, while there's not a clear process for evaluating the program, like a survey or comments on social media mentioned, it is measured by the attendance from year to year. That's how they measured it. But I thought it would be nice if they had maybe a more clear process. They have great financial support from residents and businesses, participating students, and awards at the competitions. The phrase, "it takes a village," describes how I read the grant to include the band parents and the families, musical performance experts, alumni, and more. Community engagement is what helps to make this program a success. And also that it is evident that the organization is great at supporting the band and the band program, and that it's opened the door to the IDEA. The application itself described many ways that the program is inclusive of students from diverse backgrounds and provides opportunities to serve underserved communities. And that was it.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Madison?
Mm-hmm.
I also agree that with the experience of this program, it's a really well-oiled machine. I did have a point of clarification. I would love the organization to consider. It says that the school district administration and staff spend months preparing the show before the students see the first sheet of music. I'm wondering who decides the sheet music. It's unclear to me if there's student input. And if the school is open to, I think what Kevin said to the previous application, some sort of exit survey, where at the end of the year before the students leave for summer, you poll them on what they would like to possibly see that sheet music reflect. So that way, whoever is drafting that has time to put it into consideration before the next season. But other than that, I think it's a really great application.
Excellent. Other comments from the panel? Claire?
I wasn't able to access the link that they provided. It went to a Google, it was a Google Drive link, and you had to request access, and I didn't feel comfortable doing that. So I would just encourage them next year to use, instead of using a private link, or in the future to use one that is public. And then I think that they briefly mentioned some community performances, but didn't discuss where those locations were. So I think that, you know, I would like to know if they travel to different locations within their community to perform, or if those are community performances in the sense that they invite the community to come in. And then I also would note that they definitely had IDA initiatives and strategies included in this application, but that some of the language that they used was outdated. So I would ask that they maybe reevaluate that when they're doing their application. I think that's it for me. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? All right, well, go ahead and update your scores. And then we have one last application to review. Are you okay to review the last application, or do you need to take a break? I realize we've been on here since 12:30. Plow through? Yeah, okay, cool. Well, we will go ahead and review Southwestern Jefferson County Consolidated School Corporation's application, and our first reader is Bobby.
This school also has been doing this program for 37 years, so maybe not as long as the other, but certainly a respectable program. They are expanding the performance opportunities and materials for a quality educational music experience for their students. And I appreciated how they did bring the students into the music selection. I'm not clear on how they're going to measure the program's success, though, whether it's the number of students participating, the number of performances, and so on. They mentioned reaching out to a broad audience of students. They talked about free and reduced lunch that is happening in their district, that they have a lot, but I wasn't seeing how many of those students are engaged in this program. Another area for improvement would be looking at the student selection. It says they're selected based on character, dedication, leadership qualities, and musical ability. And then they're set up for success. So what does that mean? What are you doing to these students who already have these great abilities? How are you improving them to set them up for more success? When I looked at the budget, I felt like you missed an opportunity to share your in-kind. So throughout, you talked about the volunteers and different venues that you're having these performances. So I would consider those an in-kind and an opportunity that you need to take advantage of. That's it.
Great, thank you, Bobby. John?
Yes, I'd certainly second that in terms of whenever you in some way give visibility to the in-kind contributions that occur from all the people who are not paid in terms of that. I think that is a very important piece to make happen, because it allows people to see themselves as part of the big schmear of the organization, et cetera. I think the others was trying to figure out the best way to have feedback as to how well did we do this year, what should we do, either change or inclusive. How do we measure the change process where you have an organization that's been doing something for an extended period of time? There seems to me some visibility to the scoring mechanism that helps you understand, are you still on the correct vector? Are there things that you should be exploring that are not there in terms of doing that? So yes, it's a wonderful, well-oiled machine as we've been using, but the opportunity to see whether or not it should change to electric vehicles, is a...
Great. Other comments? Madison?
This is just similar to the comment I made before regarding students with special needs in both education and physical capacities. I know that they're welcome to participate, but to what extent is their experience fully and justly supported compared to the experience of their peers? So again, I would encourage the organization to consider some sort of additional one-on-one or group support for all students with the similar capability and skill level.
Thank you, Madison. Other comments? Claire?
So given their 37 years, I think that they have an opportunity and a wealth of knowledge that they could use that experience to inform this next year of planning. And there really wasn't a discussion about that in the application. And then additionally, the marketing materials were lackluster. I was thinking, I'm thinking that they could have been an opportunity to really get this, the student body and the community excited about the events that they have. And I would encourage them to work on that. There are many free templates that are available that would provide the opportunity for them to do that. And then in the project management section, the estimated dates were not clear to me. And I thought that they likely have an idea of when they'll be holding their performances this year.
Other comments? Kevin?
Also in project management, they mentioned that they would be specialists in their fields to instruct the students, but there weren't any other people that were named saying what their specialties were. And so I think that would make things, it would make for a stronger application to actually say who those people were and what their specialties are. And also whether they're from Indiana or not, because I know in a lot of them, I kept looking through and I'm like, well, are these people from Indiana? When our Indiana art is benefiting, it was sometimes hard to find in some of the applications just overall, because it wasn't like stated or made really clear.
Okay, anything else? All right, go ahead and update your scores for our final application. And this officially concludes the Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project Support Grant Program Review panel for today. Applicants, you will be notified of the status of your grant following the June commission meeting. And if you have any questions, including if you would like a copy of comments from the online system, you can contact Elsa Conboy, who's the Grant Program Manager for Region 12. Thank you, everyone.